Enron used to be a Wall Street darling. Fortune magazine named Enron America's most innovative company for 6 years straight.
If you're not afraid to ask why, you can change whatever it is you want.
Many of Enron's 20,000 employees worshipped both the company and the CEO the way a cult did for their religious leader. Then out of nowhere, the company collapsed. It was the largest audit failure in history.
Historic layoffs.
Its aftershocks were felt across the city and the entire energy industry.
It had taken Enron 16 years to go from about 10 billion of assets to 65 billion of assets. It took them 24 days to go bankrupt.
The accounting firm, which was tapped to audit Enron, had repeatedly failed to announce the red flags in Enron's accounting books. Enron's stock price went from $90 down to 26 cents in 2001 after the company declared bankruptcy. This is the story of Enron. In 1985, Enron didn't exist yet. It was actually two companies called the Houston Natural Gas and Internorth Inc. The CEO of Houston Natural Gas, Kenneth, came along and merged the two companies into one, and Enron, the company, was born. One key change would bring Enron down a very destructive path. The US Congress at the time had introduced a series of laws which led to the deregulation of natural gas and energy markets. This allowed companies like Enron to place bets on future energy prices. Jeffrey Skilling was a consultant who would later become the CEO of Enron. He was hired to start Enron's foray into natural gas contracts. Gas prices always had the risk of unsteady fluctuations. With Enron's services, energy companies could reduce their risk to energy price fluctuations by fixing the selling price of their gas products through a contract which Enron would prepare for them. This allowed Enron to charge fees for their services. The gas producers were happy to reduce their risks to gas price fluctuations, while Enron could collect fees for the energy trades it facilitated. It didn't take long for Enron to dominate the market for natural gas contracts. Enron's profits would only continue to grow after they introduced their energy derivative contracts. The 1990s was a bull market. It was wonderful for businesses like Enron. Enron's success in natural gas contracts convinced them to offer contracts for other commodities like steel, electricity, coal, and even weather.
Welcome, analysts. But as everyone knows, you can't predict the weather. There's nothing you can do about it.
During the dot-com boom, Enron Online was launched to capitalize on the sky-high valuations of internet companies.
What volume for 135?
135. Find down to 135.
Enron Online will change the markets for many, many commodities. It is creating an open, transparent marketplace that replaces the dark, blind system that existed. It is real simple. You turn on your computer and it's right there. And if you want to do business, you push the button.
Enron branched into more industries. It entered the fiber optic broadband business to aid their high-speed trades. They added innovative pipeline operations for third parties and were the leader in energy delivery solutions. Enron's golden age would come and go and their profits would shrink. Once the profits ran dry, Enron's executives and higher-ups, new investors of their stock, would dump their shares once they saw a drop in revenue. So they cooked the books, adopting dubious accounting practices to confuse their investors. Enron specifically adopted mark-to-market accounting. Mark-to-market accounting assumes the long-term contract would fluctuate in value, so companies would need to mark their financial records up or down to show what the market value of their contract was. Mark-to-market accounting basically needed its users to report expected income, not income that they received. The problem here was Enron could report income that they would only have several years into the future right now, before they received any money from those contracts, and before they had fulfilled the terms of said contract. Enron was reporting unrealized gains as solid income. This was not supposed to happen. However, poor corporate governance and complicit employees allowed this malpractice to continue. Enron was releasing earnings reports with unrealistic revenue expectations to the public. Investors who read Enron's earnings reports couldn't understand it because of the complex organizational structures Enron employed through their many special purpose entity companies. Enron used accounting tricks to hide its debt by transferring to the many companies under its umbrella. Accounting firms which were supposed to audit Enron's books and financial statements and raise issues on any strange financial reports chose not to do so. So on the surface, Enron's profits kept going up year over year. Their $13 billion in revenue in 1996 had ballooned to $100 billion by the year 2000. Investors in Enron didn't understand what was happening, but the stock was going up and they were happy. Any attempts to clarify Enron's financial statements or how they made money was shunned by Enron's CEO. He said Enron's businesses were too complex and urged investors to trust the company, and trust him they did, to their detriment. This went on for years until people found out about it. Everything came to a close in 2001. A Fortune magazine article titled "Is Enron Overpriced?" began questioning Enron's overvalued stock price and revealed all the oddities in their accounting. A Wall Street analyst, Richard Grubman, attacked Enron's CEO, Jeffrey Skilling, in a conference call for their odd accounting practices.
You're the only financial institution that can't produce a balance sheet or a cash flow statement with their earnings.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Asshole.
And then he said, asshole.
As I understand, you call him an asshole.
If I could go back and redo things, I would not now have used the term that I used.
Skilling couldn't give investors a reason why they couldn't release a balance sheet along with their earnings statements, even though all companies managed to do it regularly. More demons were coming out of the woodwork.
The alarming thing for so many of us that worked at Enron was the depth of the moral bankruptcy of the company.
Sharon Watkins, the vice president for Enron's corporate development, sent a letter to Enron's chairman urging him to fix Enron's accounting practices. She also sent a similar letter detailing the same accounting issues to the company's audit partners. Investor confidence was waning and Enron had to do something about it soon, but they didn't. Enron's CEO did something that would damage the trust investors had in Enron. Jeffrey Skilling stepped down as CEO and sold almost 500,000 shares. An insider selling shares of the company isn't unusual, but the timing was. For the first time, Enron basically admitted wrongdoing when they announced they had to make restatements for financial dates they released in the last 4 years to correct some accounting violations. Enron also reported a $600 million loss for its third quarter and reduced company equity at the end of the year 2000 by $1 billion. It was over. Enron couldn't hide their debt and fraudulent practices any further. Investors pulled their money out of Enron stock as fast as they could. Enron's stock price fell from a $90 high to 26 cents.
I believe the only venue for me is the Ride of Broken Dreams.
Oh, you mean the Enron ride? Let's go!
We're all gonna be rich!
Ah! We broke even!
That's good satire.
Enron's investors sued the company for $40 billion. The SEC was forced to step in and investigate. Enron tried to get out of the situation by selling the company to a competitor called Dynegy for pennies, but the deal bombed and Enron had to file for bankruptcy. It was the largest corporate bankruptcy in the USA, where a company with over $63 billion in assets collapsed at the time. Many of Enron's higher-ups were charged with fraud. The US government never wanted to see another Enron again. The Sarbanes-Oxley Act was introduced in the following year to strengthen company transparency and criminalize financial fraud. Penalties were introduced for fabricating, destroying, or tampering with financial records or trying to fool investors. Financial accounting standards were also tightened to stop odd accounting practices. Many financial scandals have taken place since the Enron scandal, many more scandalous than the last. However, the Enron scandal has withstood the test of time as the textbook case of what not to do when profits are low. Falsifying earnings reports through fraudulent means are never a good idea. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe.